Welcome to the Hawkeye Sidekick podcast. And you're very welcome back to the Hawkeye Sidekick podcast. I'm absolutely honoured and delighted that we're launching the Hurling podcast debut show tonight. And with me, I have Kieran Collins and Ruairi Walshe as well. Lads, how are things?
Good.
Great.
Thanks, Mark.
Good stuff. I suppose first things first, lads. First podcast here with the Hurling, the beautiful game. Do you want to give yourselves a quick introduction? County, who do you support? Clubs, all that sort of stuff. Best moment in hurling, all that good stuff. Maybe we'll start with you, Kieran, first.
Yeah, so Mark, I'm a club man and a neighbour of yours growing up, a hand in County Limerick, and I'm down in Enniscorthy, just outside Enniscorthy in Wexford for the last 8 years now. Kind of been supporting and involved in the club IGA Glenbrine. So my own young lad he's 7, so under 7s last year, was involved, a bit of coaching, helping out, and we had a great year with the club. They won the intermediate county final, and also they went to the Leinster final, but were beaten by probably a more drilled Naas team, but good performance, a good year nonetheless. So so that's me.
Perfect, Kieran. And Rory, yourself?
Yeah, I'm from Six Mile Bridge in Clare and teaching inside in Limerick. So I have been living in Limerick for over 15 years now. So so I've kind of infiltrated the Limerick system. I'm inside in the academy for the last 7 years and giving a hand with out in UL too. So so kind of getting to know the talent coming through in Limerick, as well as keeping an eye back home as well.
Absolutely, no. It'd be great to hear about all the underage talent coming through the county as well, Rory, and obviously being Six Mile Bridge, you'd have the Clare angle as well. Just for anyone who doesn't know me, Mark Kennedy, aka Hawkeye Sidekick. You're probably wondering what the hell is the Hawkeye Sidekick all about. So we'll go back to August 2013, the Limerick Miners playing Galway in Croke Park in that All-Ireland semi-final, and I think it was Ronan Lynch's point was ruled wide by Hawkeye, so hence the Hawkeye Sidekick nickname anyway. As with Kieran, be loyal kind of Limerick hand supporter, but I'm based in Galway these days, overlooking the Castlegar GA club grounds as we're kind of recording this anyway. So we'll see if I have a bit of the inside track here on Galway as we go on the weeks ahead. So lads, maybe we'll leap straight into it anyway. The Allianz Hurling League starting this weekend in earnest. What are your initial thoughts? I suppose, what are you looking forward to?
Yeah, I suppose first of all, just the first national league with fans back in over 2 years. I remember I was at Clare in Dublin on the 1st of March, just before lockdown, and little did I know it would be 2 years before we get to see the Clash of the Ash in the league again anyway. And I think this year, like all talk is going to be massive crowds at the games, and that's really something that's going to add a lot of bite to some games. The way the divisions have worked out, Division 1A looks a lot stronger than Division 1B, so teams lose a game or two in the early rounds, and you're going to find the last few rounds cut and thrust for teams trying to avoid trouble. So that's something to look forward to as well. So yeah, Division 1A definitely. I don't think there can be teams will try and experiment, and some teams will have their hands forced with injuries, but at the same time lose a couple of games and you'll be in trouble there. So it looks like it's going to be a really competitive league, and then top 2 teams in the final as well.
Exactly.
Yeah, that will just cut out semi-finals, quarter-finals, so teams will really have to go for it as well if they have ambitions for winning the league.
Exactly. Kieran?
Yeah, this year, I think the league this year is going to be different to the last few years. You're looking at teams with new managements that are going to, we all don't know what way they're going to set up or what way they're going to line up. So I think the likes of Galway, possibly Tipperary to an extent, but Galway are going to want to field a team has experience of playing together, and I think you're going to see fairly early what way they're going to line up. There's a lot of teams too that I think would like to win the league. Dublin, Matty Kenny's 4th year.
Yep.
I think they got to a Leinster final last year and were probably a bit unlucky with the COVID cases, but they'll be looking for something this year, and I think a league win would really propel them forward going into the Leinster. Waterford, I think, another team that just to get silverware. I think they're going to go some of it without the Ballygunner guys, but if they can get them in near the end with a win, maybe that would be a huge confidence boost for them as well. So I think there's going to be teams that are pushing it and want to win it, and you might see, the likes of Limerick and Kilkenny, perhaps they'll coast along and they'll try their players. But I think some teams will actually have a very cut off it and try and win it this year.
Yeah, I'd kind of agree there, lads. I think no water breaks as well. No, it was introduced as part of COVID-19. I think it'll be interesting now to see the flow and pattern of games. Not momentum being kind of stopped midway through a half. I think it'll be very interesting. I think isn't there some rumours in terms of player instruction on the pitch by selector, stuff like that, being kind of a little bit curtailed. So it'll be interesting to see how players think on their feet a little bit in the Hurling League games coming up. I mean, 1A, as you say, Cork, Clare, Limerick, Galway, Offaly come into the 1A mix along with Wexford, and then 1B, Laois, Tip, Kilkenny, Antrim, Dublin, Waterford. I mean, they are going to be tasty enough games, and then I'm looking down at 2A as well. I mean, you have Westmeath, Kerry, Down, Carlow, Kildare, Meath. These are all fantastic games, and Kerry, there's an awful lot of pre-season about them, given the Tipperary win in the Munster Senior League and, the imports that they're bringing in from Limerick as well. So I think there's going to be plenty of maybe subplots, I would say, in an awful lot of these divisions kind of going forward. I suppose we could go to maybe the Oakland Fixtures, guys, for 1A and 1B, just to kind of maybe get your sense of where teams are at, any personnel changes, particularly player retirements or any net new players that may be coming in. I mean, the first game on tap is on 1A with Cork and Clare down in Páirc Uí Chaoimh on Saturday night. I suppose, Ruairi, being a 6 Mile bridge man, what are your hopes and dreams, I suppose, for the banner this year?
Yeah, well, strangely enough, in a way, like Clare coming into this league with an injury crisis as such. You've John Conlon just returning. Be interesting to see if he sees action. I think he is trained during the week. David Fitzgerald, another guy who's just back training this week. Tony Kelly will be out. Peter Duggan, who just has returned from Australia, is injured and out. Shane O'Donnell isn't available for most of the league, I believe, as well. So you're looking kind of at a Clare team that are forced to experiment at the weekend. Their hand has been forced. So it'll be interesting to see the likes of Shane Meehan, who saw some league action last year, but suffered a severe hand injury, so didn't feature in the championship. And just seen him playing a bit of colleges hurling, and he does look really sharp. He's an interesting prospect, an inside forward, very pacey. Patrick Crotty from Scariff is another lad brought into the senior panel this year. And Patrick saw him this evening playing Fresher 1 hurling with UL, a very impressive player, tall, rangy player. So these are kind of players that Clare are going to have to be forced to see action in a way. So it'll be interesting to see. They'll be thrown into deep end, a lot of these guys in the league. And Páirc Uí Chaoimh is kind of a place to see what they're made of in the first round. Also, I suppose the one thing from a Clare point of view is the last couple of years, any talent really that seems to be breaking through is in the forward line. And to be honest, for the last few years, you're kind of praying that, we'd find some backs, strong backs coming through. But yeah, at the moment, like the roll of the dice seems to be like it's kind of forward talent that seems to be getting through. And as a Clare fan, I would love like if we could find, just guys that would really push for places in the back line, because you could almost name the 6 backs apart from a few positional changes like John Conlon, nobody saw last year, go back at 6. But look, apart from that, you're going to have the same personnel at the moment in the back line for the league and championship.
Exactly. Kieran, what are you thinking there?
Yeah, and I suppose different to last year with the round robin, teams are going to have strength and depth. So I think while Clare are going to have to try these young lads, they're probably going to rely on them later on in the year as well. Diarmuid Ryan, I think he's been absolutely brilliant this year so far. I think he's if he doesn't get injured and that's another thing for teams is not picking up injuries as the year goes on. So to important players. I like to look at Clare. I think Clare, once all the players come back, Tony Kelly, obviously, Duggan, Liam McCarthy, if he's going to feature this year, I think looking back to the very start of last year, losing to Antrim the first game, everyone thought, okay, this is going, the shackles are going to fall off. It's going to be bad. But I think they had a good year. They were a puck of a ball away from beating Cork. It was a rare Tony Kelly miss, so Cork got to the Ireland final. I think with all the negative talk around Clare that went on last year, I think Lohan has done a fabulous job. I think they might struggle in a bit of depth, and maybe you might see that with their own robin. But I think from what was from the start of the league last year to now, I think Clare, very impressive.
Yeah, I'd agree with you there, and I think great backroom staff there as well. We'll give a plug to James Moran as well. He's a good backroom staff there as well. I suppose you could swing to Cork as well. I mean, I think it'll be an interesting league campaign for Cork initially, with Kieran Kingston. They've made a few backroom personnel changes again, trying to get over the line. I think it's going to be very interesting to see the likes of Mark Keane's back from AFL, see how he gets on. I think you have the under-20s that will be coming through as well, likes of Kieran Joyce. Also, O'Connell from Middleton is a really good prospect there for the midfield area as well. So it'll be interesting to see how Kingston plays it. I think Cork are one of these teams. They may not say it publicly, but I think they'd want to go fairly deep into the Allianz Hurling League and try to get to a final if they could possibly. I think.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, silverware, it would be a massive boost for them, and I think is it a sign bringing back Mark Keane that they're trying to bolster up the squad and with a bit of strength. It seemed to be what they were missing out on against Limerick in the All Ireland last year. They were just physically dominated all over. So it's hard to know what way they're going to set up. I suppose they're a bit of an unknown because we haven't seen them yet this year.
Exactly. I think you have Owen Cadigan and also Bill Cooper as well. Would be a massive retirement there in that Cork panel as well this year. Don't know, Rory, if you have any thoughts on Cork initially. What do you expect from them, I suppose?
Yeah. First of all, I'd agree with Kieran that I think Cork, the league, is probably something Cork, they'll be one of the teams I believe will be challenging really for silverware in the league and will set their stall out. Last year they kind of used the league to change their style of play, a lot of short stuff with Coleman dropping back and playing the ball across the pitch and back again, kind of a patient style. And that kind of style, under intense pressure from Limerick in the All-Ireland final, broke down. Yeah. So you just wonder, are they going to maybe this year try and vary the game a small bit? Because they kind of set their stall out last year to play this way. It was very effective in a lot of early league games, and then as the year went on, you could see that if the team got at them, Clare kind of nearly got over the line without Limerick with the intense pressure in the first half. That the style of play from Cork did buckle, the short puckets to the backs. They just weren't able to work that ball across the pitch like they'd been doing to find the loose wing back to strike the ball. And you just wonder, are they going to not necessarily go back to the drawing board, but evolve the system slightly this year? And the league will probably give them a chance to do that. And it'll be interesting to see what Cork will come out with during the league.
Exactly. I think there's fundamental issues, I think, in that full-back centre-half position. I think Downey myself is a half-back in waiting there. I mean, he plays UCC, the half-back line. I mean, full-back, he filled the gap, but again, anyone would have been exposed given the space that poor Cork full-back line were having to defend in an All-Ireland Hurling final. But Kieran, you want to get in there?
Yeah, no, I just think that there's probably a pressure on Cork as a whole unit. So it's 16 years since they've won the All-Ireland. They never went a decade without one before. So I think it's that desperation, chopping and changing your style of play so quickly. If you're going to play a certain way, just stick with it. And Limerick implemented a style of play back in 17, wasn't a good year, stuck with it, and it takes time. You're not going to do something overnight. But I think there's a lot of pressure on possibly management and players. Horgan, 33. Will you see another year? Will this be his last year? They're going to be 33, 34. Seems to be the new retirement age for hurlers. So, I don't know. Is Horgan having the last throw of the dice in hope? It's, as you said, the likes of losing squad players like Cooper and Cadigan. I know Lehan is back in, and seemingly they played a challenge against Tipperary last week, and Lehan played very well, seemingly. So he's another player to come in, but I just think there's a lot of pressure on Cork.
Yeah, I agree so too. Yeah, after you, Roy.
Yeah, just losing Bill Cooper isn't the most stylish hurler, and neutrals going to see Cork or going to see Patrick Horgan shooting points over the shoulder, but you're losing an amount of work rate and tackles, a tackle count that is hard to replace. Like a Lehan for a Cooper isn't a like for like, in that Lehan will, on a good day in space, will score heavily and do damage, but so far he hasn't shown that high rate of tackle count without the ball, and that's probably why has been out in the cold for the last couple of years, unless it's something that he's willing to change, or they're going to try and fit him into a system. Otherwise, it is an interesting one. I was surprised to see him called back in. But look, as Kieran said, early signs are good that he is in form, and he was in form for his club. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of a league he has, and will he be thrown straight in as well?
Exactly. And this Hurling podcast, we'll have a Cork representation. James Mulcair will be joining us anyway, hopefully next week. So Might even get him off the air, guys. He'll be so passionate about the Rebels. But maybe we'll move on to Wexford Limerick. I think that's a stand-up game on 1A in Chadwick's Wexford Park. Kieran, based in Enniscorthy, you're expecting a few of us down on Sunday. How do you feel on this game? And any word from the Wexford camp how they're getting on pre-season?
They seem to have moved away from the sweeper, which was probably anticipated for Darragh Egan's style to play. Any team he's ever been involved with, he's gone the conventional 15 and 15. I don't think Wexford are good enough to play without a sweeper. Paddy Foley's back in. He took a year out. Has played well the first 2 games in centre back, but I think there's a lot of passengers. Matt O'Hanlon. I actually read something last week that they said he'd need a 2-acre field to turn. He was that slow. Liam Ryan hasn't been playing well in the early games. Now, look, it is early, it is January, but it will be interesting to see will they deploy a sweeper for Limerick coming down Sunday. It's probably a hard thing to do, going from knowing you have 7 defenders in an area to now having 6. It'll take time. It'll be a big adjustment, I think, defensively.
Yeah, Rory, what are you thinking there?
Yeah, just thinking. I went down to, when Limerick were champions, went down to Nolan Park for the league with my Limerick buddies here in 2019. It was the league game down in Nolan Park, and we're kind of wondering, what will Limerick do in terms of their champions? Will they just go through the league? But they actually, if you remember the game, ferociously tore into Kilkenny.
Yeah.
And I think that's the way, like under John Kiley, they'll just have a standard set for every game, and there'll be no slackening off during the league. And I just think that that's what Wexford are going to face at the weekend. They're going to face a Limerick team that are, hell-bent to win the game as well. If we remember back to the Kilkenny team of Brian Cody's, the 4 in a row team, every single league, they went for every trophy they could. And I think there is that air about Limerick as well, be it Munster League, whatever. And with the way Limerick players are so comfortable slotting in and out of the system that they play, and sometimes you could see a debutant and he just slots in and seems like he's been playing his 10th, 11th game with Limerick. So I think Limerick are in that group. We talked about how strong Division 1A looks, and I just think Limerick are probably going to be the team that will emerge at the end of it, and beginning down in Wexford on Sunday.
Yeah, and I think, Kieran, you bring up a great point in terms of the sweeper system, because I think the reality shocks was last week at the Walshe Cup final for Darragh Egan. 229 conceded against a rampant Dublin in the Walshe Cup final. I mean, if that doesn't focus minds and maybe kind of readjusting defensively, but as you say, Egan's very passionate 15-on-15 guy, so with Kildangan, he's played straight hurling, beat your man. So it'll be interesting to see the Wexford setup. I suppose Limerick, the conveyor belt of talent coming through as well. Rich English is great to see him coming back in. He's had a good pre-season. Adam English's brother comes in. Reedy as well. Guys are literally chomping at the bit here to get more action, get more game time, which must bode well for the likes of John Kiley, Paul Kinnerk, and ultimately the team as a whole. Kieran.
The best scenario for any manager is players fighting for a place, Plus you have, I'm sure in their training, you have A, B games, these B team players are playing against the best teams or best players in the country when they're playing matches and training. So that alone has to bring them on. Like Kilkenny were in the day. Kilkenny had their A and B games, was probably better than any training match they ever went to. Competition, just can't beat it. Competition for places. Kiley as well, he's cutthroat. If you're not performing, he showed that with Gillan last year. Gillan wasn't at his best. He dropped him, and it was probably the best thing he did all year. Like Cody back in the day, he's not going to bring any passengers in the team. If you're not performing, you're off. And I think he's lucky he can do that because of the pool of players he has. But he uses it to his advantage as well. He manages it well.
Yeah. I think it'd be a fascinating fixture. I think, full crowd down there in Chadwick's Wexford Park anyway. Kieran,
I do think you will. I do think at the other end, going back to your 15-15, it'll suit Conor McDonald. He's an out-and-out old-style full forward. He'll win his own ball, he'll turn, he'll score. He had 6 points from play against Kilkenny in the Walshe Cup. So I think going back to being in on the square, that will suit him. Rory O'Connor, same thing. Players that like to be in front of goal. Last year with Davy, they were 40 yards out from goal. So McDonald was never going to be influential. So I think the likes of McDonald, it will suit him with Egan there. So It's how they build up around that, I think, is the question.
Yeah,
In the championship match last year, Kieran Wexford, if you remember, in the last few minutes, and their hand was forced, and they put Chin inside, and they started to hit direct long ball in, and it caused consternation for a while. And there was almost this rapid turnaround at the end of the game, which no one could see for the previous 60 minutes, and you kind of left the ground thinking, like, with the players Wexford have, your big ball winners, Lee Chin, Rory O'Connor, Conor McDonald, like maybe a more direct style with them, would suit them. I think often, like with Davy Fitz teams, it's kind of the team fits the system, whereas maybe with Darragh Egan, it might be system fits the team. Now, with success, let's remember, like, Wexford did come from nowhere to win a Leinster title, and we're so close to an Ireland final. So, look, poke a ball away from that in that game, or maybe a red card away with the way things fell asunder with the extra man. But like, ever since that game, though, you'd have to say their stock has been falling. Last year they had a poor league campaign, a very poor All-Ireland campaign, and you're kind of wondering where really are Wexford. And I presume, like, Darragh Egan can't afford to, he has to kind of go from the start, especially All-Ireland champions in town, throw the kitchen sink at them, see where they are, and it'd be a great one for him to pitch, see exactly which players will stand up to this level, which won't. I remember when Tipper All-Ireland champions a couple of years ago, they came down first round and got turned over by Wexford down in Wexford Park. Exactly. So
it's a hard place to go. It's a hard place to come and play. The only thing I will say, and I hope it's not a factor, is I hope that the players aren't burnt out. Looking back on last year, there was word that Davy had trained them 28 days on 31 in January. Like, players, it's different than it was in the 80s and 90s. Players are conditioned. They're conditioned all year round. They don't need to be training 28 days out of 31. Like, I think we seem to forget these players have jobs, they've college to go to, they've other things. So I think that's kind of, I don't think sports science will back up that level or the intensity of training. That Wexford Clare game you mentioned, I was there that day, like, to see your Wexford full forward line in the first half being 40 yards out from goal, like, you're kind of looking at it wondering, like, how did they expect, like, when the ball did go in, it was scrappy, but it was 3-on-1, 2-on-1, so it was very hard to win. And it was Rory O'Connor and Lee Chin who were doing all the work. They were up and down the field. Like, it actually came to the stage in the game where Chin, I was watching him, it was taking him 10 or 15 seconds to peel himself off the ground. Like, it was a real scorcher of a day as well. So, yeah. Intense heat. But it actually, the guy sitting next to me, I said, take him off. Like, he's no good to you. If he's peeling, he's spent. He has given everything he can. And they're like, oh, we don't have anyone better on the bench. But I think at that stage, it didn't matter who you brought on. It was just fresh legs. And I think Davy kind of had his select players. And I hope they're not burnt out from the last few years. I hope that it's a case they are fresh coming in and that they can give it their all, that there isn't a hangover from the Davy times, we'll say.
Yeah. Well, I think new manager, Darragh Egan, I think he's a very straightforward guy, plays the game uncomplicated. And then Gordon Darcy comes back into the backroom staff. So I'm assuming psychological, mindset, maybe the strength conditioning side of things as well. So I think it's just a new era, a new page, a new chapter for Wexford Hurling. I suppose we can get on to the Galway and Offaly. And I know I'm based up here in Galway. I've been working from home for the last 2 years, and I go to the local spare shop in Roscommon. And the excitement across the road from the Cascar GA Club grounds was palpable when King Henry Shefflin got the job. Now, there has been excitement after the Offaly Cup win, but it fair dampened down after the Dublin loss. What's your reading on Galway this year, guys? It looks to me it's now or never for quite a few of that Galway side. I know Joe's departed stage left, what a magnificent player, but I think and Aidan Hart, but other guys within that Galway dressing room, been there 10 plus years, it's now or never, I'd say. Rory, is it?
Yeah, like Dahi Burke, David Burke, they are kind of, age-wise, you could still say but they have a lot of miles in the clock, hurling-wise, and obviously Dahi Burke with football as well, with Curra Finn, had no off-season for a few years. So, it is hard to know, and you'd wonder, like, if somebody like Henry had come in a couple of years ago with Joe Canny and Aidan Hart, like, because there's a rebuilding job has to be done at the moment. Under 20, I know minor level they've had a lot of success. Under 20 level, like 13 of the last 14 under 20, under 21 All-Irelands have been won by Munster teams. Galway have won the other one. which is probably a worrying sign for Leinster hurling at the moment. But it's just an interesting stat that like Galway, for all their success, have not won a lot of under 20, under 21s in the last number of years. So there isn't this conveyor belt that we imagined coming through that had been there in previous years. Saying that the pool of talent in the county in terms of like strength of club hurling, we saw St. Thomas's performance the last day again. You wonder, like, can they get a 15 players on the pitch that will really challenge this year? And that's the job Henry has. I think would Henry have preferred to have inherited a squad that, like 2 or 3 years ago, you could pick the Galway team, like for now that would be playing in the championship, but you could not put your hand on your heart now and name like even 10, 11 of the team that are going to start, because there's going to be wholesale changes through the team as well. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, particularly because I think Aidan Hart will be a great leader in that dressing room as well. He's retired stage left as well, and I know Joe is just Joe Canning, like he's mercurial up here. But again, they're going to look to Clarenbridge, I think, an awful lot for the underage talent coming through, because Clarenbridge have really been producing year in, year out an awful lot of good minor and under 20 teams. TJ Brennan comes to mind. I think he's a guy that has incredible upside, very tall, physical player, has been playing prominently with the under 20s. He led Clarenbridge very, very well to lead them to the county final last year against St. Thomas's. And then you have Donald O'Shea, Evan Island, but I think Donald O'Shea, Eamon O'Shea's son from Salt Hill, Lougnacara. It'll be an interesting one there for him because he has the technical ability. I just wonder about the physicality, but Shefflin is going to run the rule over all these guys, I would say, in maybe a few of the rounds. But I know they've Limerick coming up in round 2. I'd say he'll be looking to get a strong team out there and make a big statement for Galway, particularly with the league campaign. Kieran, what are your thoughts there on the prizeman?
I think it was a gamble on both sides. I think Galway are taking a gamble on Shefflin by name. Like, realistically, he's not proven as a manager. Okay, he's managed Ballyhale to an All-Ireland, but given the talent they have, I think it didn't take much. He brought Thomastown to intermediate semi-final. They lost to Glenmore. So, like, inter-county-wise, he didn't have, like, the experience isn't there. So, on Galway's behalf.
Yeah, because I'm looking at Offaly, and I think Offaly, be fair to say, guys, is a work in progress. I do like the underage structures that are coming in to the county the last few years. It's great to see Michael Duignan there as chairman driving things on. You see Shane Lowry there, particularly supporting the GAA an awful lot as well. I do like the signing of, or the acquisition of, Johnny Kelly into the Offaly setup as the hurling skills coach along with Michael Fennelly. I think Offaly down through the years have been absolutely quality, risky hurlers. And I think the only thing is Oisin Kelly was their leading point scorer last year. I think he's still out with a knee injury, so I think league campaign might be a bit difficult for them. But they have a good nucleus of underage talent there. They ran Kilkenny rather close in the minors and under 20s last year, and I think just a case of maybe developing these lads a little bit more. I don't know if you have anything to say there about Offaly, really, lads.
Yeah, they've actually a very strong minor team this year, and they'd have high hopes in the Leinster Championship. So that's another team coming through. Leo O'Connor, the Limerick man, is in charge. He's his 3rd year up there with Offaly minors. So, so going all the way down underage, they do have structures in place. They have a wonderful facility, Faithful Fields. Been up there a couple of times with Limerick underage teams, and so like they're definitely on an upward curve. Probably they're in Joe McDonagh this year. Probably I'd see them as favourites early on for the Joe McDonagh, and okay, they are in the tougher side of the league. I presume they would have liked maybe a Laois or an Antrim as one of the games they will play, but so you'd wonder, like, the only thing is it'll prepare them really well for Joe McDonagh. Every game they play, they've Galway, Cork, Limerick, Clare, Wexford. Like, every game they play is going to be a wonderful preparation for them. So, like, you just hope that things don't go wrong for them either in the league, and they have a few demoralising defeats. That can also be a negative going into a Joe McDonagh Cup, but they are.
Hopefully not a Westmeath from last year, Yeah, it's nothing worse, is it? Like, after round 3 or 4 getting hammered a few times. So I'd say that may be a key objective for Michael Fennelly and Johnny Kelly and the rest of the Offaly crew. And we wish them well there, Money. It's a lethal fixture list anyway.
Sorry, Mark, but just come back with Galway. If you remember last year, at the end of the league, Galway took Waterford apart. And just looking back through it was the Waterford championship team. Went down then and beat Cork by 5 points down in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. And, everyone was thinking this is, Galway are finally primed, second year under Shane O'Neill, that they're primed for a championship. And it was possibly the worst championship campaign Galway have had in a long time. And you just, like, Henry is coming into a setup where, in a way, he's picking the players off the floor as well, after what has happened in the championship. So it was just like, it was a real Jekyll and Hyde from Galway last year, because it showed so much promise. And we all thought the Dublin game was probably a one-off thing. But like the Waterford game, it's hard to believe the same team they had played within 6 weeks and how things had just changed. So yeah, it is a huge league campaign for Galway.
Yeah, right. Maybe we go to 1B, guys. Laois Tip Saturday night. Tipperary new manager Colin Bonner. We've had keynote retirements like Brendan Maher, Pádraig Maher this week. Guys, is this a banana skin fixture for Tip, considering what's happened in Munster Senior League, or do we think they've enough squad depth here to get over Laois and Portlaoise? I don't know, Kieran, if you want to maybe have your thoughts there, the Premier County.
I think a lot of people are writing Tip off very early this year. Okay, they've lost some very key players, but they still have John McGrath, who, like, for a club campaign, like, you'd wonder how he wasn't in the Tip setup last year. It was 7 man of the matches in 9 games between hurling and football for Loughmore. Canlin, Bonner Maher's back. I heard he played a college's game the other day. And you have youth as well. You have Brian McGrath. So there is still players there. They will still have a deadly full forward line. I think what Tip might struggle with is later on is a panel. 1 or 2 key guys get injured. Will they have replacements for it? And that's the question. I think that's to see if they have the youth that I question is there. But I think it's the struggle will be the whole year as opposed to not just 1 or 2 games.
Yeah, I think last year Liam Sheedy kind of gambled on the old stagers in a way that they would be good enough to win Tip another All-Ireland, and he didn't really blood in that team that won the All-Ireland. And we've seen them coming off the bench a couple of times, but I kind of thought last year some of them would be forcing their way into the starting team, and maybe it would be the more senior players coming on for the last 20 minutes, get to steady the ship at the end of the game. But it was kind of the other way around. We saw that in the Munster final against Limerick when they turned to the subs bench 10-15 minutes in the second half, and he didn't really, you could tell, have confidence in that subs bench. Left players out there way too long when you could see that their legs were gone and the day that was in it, and left it too late. And maybe that was, as Kieran said, maybe it's just a sign that he doesn't think that those players are up to it. But yeah, I still thought that he could have really tried to blood players through last year's championship. So now Bonner is in the position where his hand is forced as well, having to throw in these younger players in. And they are in the easier side of the league. He will have a chance to definitely get plenty of league games, inter-county games under the belts of a lot of these guys. So yeah, but it's Tip are going to be an unknown quantity this year. It's just very hard, as you said, hard to write them off maybe, because we just don't know what they'll produce. But judging on underage success recently, they have talent coming through, but these guys have been sitting on the bench now for 3 or 4 seasons when they could have had a lot more experience.
I think if you're a Tip fan, you'd have to be livid at Liam Sheedy. I think it was like a roll of dice, last chance, try and get one more All-Ireland to my name. Not like completely short-sighted. Was not looking at the future at all. Bringing him in when the backs were against the wall against Limerick in the Munster final. It didn't matter who they brought on. It wasn't going to turn the tide. And I think that could even be damaging to young players coming in, like Paddy Cadell and Morris, and like the young guys coming in. Is it another sign that Cahill turned down the Tip job, that he knows what's in the county? I'm sure any proud Tip man would relish the chance to manage your own senior hurling team. So is that a sign in itself that maybe the talent isn't as good as what some people might say it is?
Yeah, you'd kind of wonder, wouldn't you? I mean, they do have a good conveyor belt. Like, case study for me is Craig Morgan, the under-21 cornerback from Kilwan McDonough's. I mean, it's been a slow, gradual progression gets into senior panel. I think realistically he's looking at game time, but this should really realistically have happened 2 years ago, straight after an under-21 All-Ireland triumph. Sheedy, I think, for me, has been extremely short-sighted, I think. And there's one or two have gone to the senior football panel and haven't come back. And maybe it's just that treatment of certain players, and Jimmy Meehan as well, would have been probably a prime wing-back, midfield, middle third guy. Has no inclination, I think, of going back to the senior hurlers. So I think talent's undoubtedly there. I think what will be interesting is, like, say, Conor Bowe, guys like that, are they going to get the game time? I think they certainly will. I think Colin Bonner, certainly, with his background with WIT, Carlo, he has given you the chance. So I think from that perspective, fair enough. But I think there's an awful lot of big decisions to be made, particularly down the spine of the team. Pádraig Maher having to retire quite dramatically this week. I mean, that full back line now looks a little bit vulnerable. Does Connolly from Cashel Kilcormack's come into fill the breach there? Big responsibility for a young lad. Ronan Maher as well. Do you push him back to full back, centre half back? Midfield wise, Gerard Brown probably was looking to be one of those midfield contenders. Goes down injured within the first half against Kerry. I don't know. There's a few, particularly the backline midfield for Tipperary. I think maybe an interesting watch. I think this year.
And I think they'll survive this year and possibly next year. We won't see the full effect of the breeding new players like this, like Hanlon. You've Bubbles, you've Bonner. What I would fear is Noel McGrath is when these lads step away, which they're all around the same age. So give it a year or two. It's then what state is Tipperary hurling in? Have they enough players in the ranks now to replace these guys and to be competitive? That's a big ask, I think, for Colin Bonner.
And there's only 3 left from that 2010 class, which is almost enough for Bonner. But I think it'll be an interesting look this year. Don't think you can write off anyone this time of year, but I think Tipperary definitely, there's plenty of questions to be answered. I suppose going to Laois, Tara Plunkett in charge. Again, Stellar McWilliam retired last year. It'd be interesting to see with Ballycolla, any of those players coming through. Underage system wise, it will be interesting to see if anyone comes through. But I'd say Tip will have enough in Portlaoise, but I think there may be more problems, particularly with Dublin, Waterford and Kilkenny in the next few weeks. And maybe we get down to Kilkenny. I mean, Kilkenny entertain Antrim in Nolan Park on Sunday. 25th year for Brian Cody, the legendary Brian Cody in charge. Ruairi, what's your thoughts on Kilkenny this year? I mean, they have had a few marquee retirements during the off-season, but have to be respected, surely.
Yeah, have to be respected. And and it's one thing I just pointed out earlier was the lack of success of Leinster teams in under 20. And even there, if you were to name All-Ireland contenders, you're thinking, Limerick, Waterford, Cork were in the final last year, Clare so close to Cork. And you're just looking at Kilkenny really from Leinster. I know, let's say Galway, Leinster team or whatever, but out of the traditional Leinster teams, you're just looking at Kilkenny. The one thing about Kilkenny is no matter who they have out there, it's just a battle to beat them. They play like a team that have never won in All-Ireland. In every single game they play, they have this ravenous hunger, which Cody has instilled in every player that puts on the jersey. Antrim last year came down and gave a really good performance down in Nolan Park. I remember after they beat Clare, everyone was kind of thinking, one off. But they actually competed very well in numerous other games, particularly down in Nolan Park, where they, with 10 minutes to go, I think it was just a point in the game. And Kilkenny pulled away just at the finish. So first round of the league, you'd wonder, is there a potential for a game a lot closer than we'd expect? That could be one of them. For Antrim again, put in a big performance and shove it up to Kilkenny, but you'd have to just see Kilkenny coming out there.
Yeah, Kieran?
Yeah, and obviously as well, Kilkenny without the Ballyhale contingent as well. So they're really going to have to dig deep into the resources. And you probably will see a lot of players, new players you mightn't have seen before. But I agree. I think Kilkenny should probably have enough. I think they should have enough.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you there. I think it'll be fascinating watch to see, particularly in that full back line, particularly who stands up there. I mean, Joey Holden's retired, or Murphy. They're big legends of the game back there. I think just leadership in the dressing room, characters that are going to uphold standards. So I think it'll be very fascinating to see how Cody kind of manages that, as well as that Colin Fennelly, loyal and reliable to get a goal for you when you need it most in the full forward positions retired as well. So I think maybe puts a little bit more onus on the likes of an Adrian Mullen, or I wonder if Mullen will go into more of a forward position this year, compensating with that, along with maybe Owen Cody. It'd be interesting to see, and I do have connections down in Kilkenny as well, to identify that one or two more forwards coming through that can really contribute to a game. Sometimes last year it was really left to TJ Reid or Cody or guys like that to really kind of bail the team out. They're looking for more balance, so it'll be interesting to see who emerges there anyway. But I think they should have enough for Antrim. But I think with Darren Gleeson in charge, I think we'll see more of an improvement. I think it's just a shame for them in terms of Leinster that they're not going to be in the Leinster Senior Hurling Championship this year, because the money that's been pumped into Antrim GA, particularly hurling wise, has been phenomenal in the last year or two. So, hopefully they'll put up a good show. And I think maybe the marquee fixture here, 1B fixtures, is in Parnell Park with Dublin and Waterford. Given Dublin's pre-season form has been absolutely ridiculously good, Ruairi, do you see Dublin as maybe potential contenders this season with Matty Kenny in charge?
Well, definitely, the chips have fallen in their favour, because you're playing the Waterford team without the Ballygunner players in Parnell Park. They win that game. They also have Laois Antrim in the group. They have Kilkenny in Parnell Park as well.
Yeah.
So that you could, with winners coming out, if they can beat, the Waterford game is huge. If they beat Waterford at the weekend, then they are really in the driving seat in that group, with the way the fixtures are falling, and will be there or thereabouts for that league final place, which is the boost maybe Dublin need under Matty Kenny, get to a league final and hopefully bring that form into championship then afterwards. But yeah, it is interesting. We saw Liam Rush, he switched from Lucan Sarsfields this year across. They should have won that county final. It was a cracking game, and standard-wise, I must say it was like watching a few of the county finals. I thought it was an excellent game. I know the Kilmacud probably disappointed in the Leinster Championship, and to be honest, they were fortunate to win the final on the night. But I was just really impressed with the centre hurling in that final, and you just kind of look at Dublin and think, out of all the teams in Leinster, they're probably in the best position. Maybe you look at Offaly, still in Joe McDonough next year, Wexford, new manager, who knows? Galway as well with Henry and all the changes. Dublin are maybe in a position to make the most progress there and really challenge Kilkenny this year. And yet it all starts with the league, and if they can get a win at the weekend, it'll be a good start for them, great start for them.
Absolutely. Kieran?
Yeah, I think whoever wins this game tops the group 1B for me. I see Dublin named their team tonight. It's from what I can see, a full strength team. So I think they're really going to target it. And as I said, win silverware, it's a huge boost before you go into Leinster. The only downside I can see is you go to a league final. If you lose, you have a 2-week turnaround to championship. So it'd be hard to pick yourself up after that. But I think Roland Hayes was very good with Kilmacud for the club last year, and they have good forwards. They have good players. Crummy, Sutcliffe. I think Kenny's had time now. This is his 4th year, so I think it's probably do or die for him as well this year. They have to make some sort of strides, be it win a league or win Leinster.
I think so too. I think it's do or die for Dublin, and I think given how Dublin's footballers lost Armagh opening weekend, National Football League, I think it's a glorious opportunity for Dublin hurlers now to really kind of put their mark in the capital, get a result against Waterford, build the momentum from the Walsh Cup final, and get the supporters on board here, because even looking at the Leinster Senior Hurling Championship, I know in terms of league, but they play Laois at home first off round 1. They play Wexford then down in Chadwick's Wexford Park. It's a huge game. If they can get 2 from there, Jesus, it's going to be a long summer for them. But I suppose going for Waterford then as well. The Ballygunner contingent obviously preparing for the All-Ireland Club final against mighty Ballyhale Shamrocks next weekend. But they've had to deal with a few retirements, particularly Kevin Moran, Shane Fives, Stephen O'Keefe. It'll be interesting with Liam Cahill just to see who he kind of identifies there to really kind of boost the squad and get it to the next level, because they have been thereabouts. Kieran?
I think Stephen O'Keefe for Ballygunner has been exceptional. I think if I was Cahill, I would be doing whatever I could to get him back in that squad. I think Waterford lacked last year, not having him there. It's strange how it's changed. Where a goalie 10 years ago it was just a guy to stop the ball going into the net, but now it's so important, ball distribution and getting the ball into the right areas. I think O'Keefe, if I was Cahill, I would be doing whatever I could to get him back in the squad. I think if Ballygunner can win the club, I think it would be a huge boost for Waterford. Like Desi Hutchinson, absolute unreal year. If he can put that into Waterford, and if he can do it against Sean Finn, I think that's the big question mark. He's done it against most teams, but again, not against Limerick. And I think if you can get him firing for Waterford as the year goes on, I think they'll be there. They'll be at the very end. I think, yeah.
Rory, what do you think of Waterford?
Agreed. You could say in both times they played Limerick in the 2020 final. In the 2020 final in particular, at the very start, remember they had the goal chance to whiz, and Limerick had to defend heavily in the first. There was a scoreline at one stage. It was 6-2 to Limerick, but Waterford had been straight through 2 or 3 chances early on. Last year in the semi-final, the first 15-20 minutes were ferocious. Now Waterford couldn't keep it up, whereas that was the thing that I think Waterford wanted to throw everything at Limerick and get ahead of them. That didn't happen. And then they fell away in the end. But yeah, what was the strange thing with Waterford last year was the performance against Clare in the first round of the Munster Championship, where they were just no one saw that coming in a way, that they were just blown out of it. And they did pick themselves up after that, but you just kind of wonder with them, and particularly against Galway as well, that second half where they had a tremendous first half, and suddenly in the space of 10 minutes, the lead was gone. So there is something not quite there yet. Might come this year. Liam Cahill, as we said earlier, has stayed on for a reason. So Iarla Daly again coming through. He can probably, we're talking about Kevin Moore retiring, but he can see Kevin Moore last year was kind of didn't get much game time for him in the championship. So he can see these players coming through as natural replacements. Ballygunner have been very impressive so far. As Kieran said, a win there will give momentum to Waterford with these boys coming back in with All-Ireland medals. And, the Munster is just going to be so competitive this year. You could name any 3 now out of the 5. Limerick plus 2 more to come out in the Munster Championship. So, but that's 2 out of any of the rest of the 4. And really, each county, Clare would see themselves as getting in there. Cork, of course, Waterford, Tipperary will always see themselves as being in the top 3 in Munster. So that's going to be fascinating. Yeah, I think it's a tight around, as we said, Dublin and Waterford. And I probably fancy Dublin the way things are going, and that could get them into the league final. So I'm going to say a Limerick-Dublin league final in my early prediction.
Kieran?
Yeah, I'd have to echo the same. I think Dublin with a full team, Waterford obviously minus the Ballygunner guys. I think Dublin have the great win against Wexford last week, 229. It's great scoring in January, be it the ground is good and all. But I think Kenny will target the league and just try and get some silverware and build momentum from there.
I'd kind of agree with you there, lads. Full house there, I think. Limerick, Dublin, I think early form. We'll see how we get on there before early April. Lads, we leave it there anyway. This has been a great opening episode. Plenty of insight. Thanks very much, Kieran and Rory. And sure, look, we'll chat next week. We'll maybe review a few of these games and see what the main headlines were. Thanks again.
Thanks, Mark.
Cheers, Mark.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Thank you for listening to this podcast episode. If you liked what you heard in this podcast, why not subscribe to the Hawkeye Sidekick podcast on either Amazon, Spotify, YouTube or Twitter platforms. You can also follow me at Hawkeye Sidekick on Facebook and Twitter for the latest sporting opinions, articles and reports.